Good morning, everyone. Sorry we're running about 6 minutes late, but I'd like to welcome you all to City Licensing Committee. This includes members here in the chamber, those joining us virtually, public speakers, and those members of the public who may be watching on YouTube. My name is Councillor Russ McPherson. I'm chair of this committee. Could I just ask those present in the council chamber just to introduce themselves, and we go from Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Naomi Bennett, Abbey Ward, thank you.
Councillor Rosie Moore, Coleridge Ward.
Councillor Tim Griffin, Coleridge Ward.
Councillor Rachel Wade, West Chesterton Ward.
Councillor Jerry Bird, Vice Chair of Licensing, East Chesterton.
Councillor Sam Carling from West Chesterton.
Yvonne O'Donnell, Environmental Health Manager.
Tony Johnson, in-house legal.
Chris Connor, Committee Manager.
Okay, thank you for that. We do have some apologies as well. We have an apology from Councillor Lettisinger. Councillor Pounds may be joining us a little later on. Who else do we have?
Perhaps online.
So we've got
Councillor Levine.
Okay. Oh, yes, I'm looking for it there. Yeah, Councillor Levine, and that is about it, isn't it?
Yeah, Lettisinger, Pounds, but
Yes,
they may
it-
join us online.
And that's about it, isn't it? Yeah, okay. So we've got 3 apologies there so far. So I will ask for any declarations of interest. If there are any declarations of interest, please make them now. If not, then, as you know, you can do so at any time during the meeting. Are there any declarations? Silence assumes assent. Thank you so much. Oh, yes, my apologies. We have Officer Wangiri who's joined us online, and I actually forgot to add her. My apologies. Okay, minutes of the last meeting, everybody in possession thereof? Read, are there any items arising from those minutes? Silence assumes assent. In that case, I will accept them and sign them when the appropriate time arrives. And that takes us very nicely and swiftly to public questions. Gentlemen, there were going to be 3 of you. Are there only 2 today? Okay, thank you very much. So if you would just like to, I know you know the rules, but if you could just make sure the microphone is on, and you'll have 3 minutes to put your question whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. We do have apology from one of our colleague. He is off sick today, so he couldn't make it. Thank you.
Could you, sorry to interrupt. Could you just say your name before you start? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ahmed Karahmet. I'm the chairman of Cambridge City Licensed Taxis. The trade supports and welcomes the 11-year age proposal. Such a new policy will be a lifeline to struggling drivers and their families who are still grappling with the cost of living crisis. But just to be clear, we didn't ask this only for the benefit of taxi drivers. The public will have a huge benefit too, especially the most vulnerable of our city wheelchair users. We have recently seen many proprietors handing back wheelchair taxi plates rather than replacing vehicles, since it's not economically viable to replace taxis in line with all the current requirements of age, emissions, and livery. Options such as working for private hire companies with vehicles licensed with other authorities makes more economic sense to the drivers. As a result, we have seen a drop in wheelchair vehicles, especially the multi-seater models. This has also meant less access to taxis for wheelchair users, as well as a reduction in revenue for the City Council. These multi-seaters are extremely important for the public, since they are not just an essential way of travel for wheelchair users, but they also provide more financially viable options for families or groups of friends traveling together. Cambridge was once a city which had a waiting list for Hackney plates. Now we have a list of plates waiting to be taken by the proprietors. The new 11 years age limit would have an immediate positive effect for proprietors and the public, as it will give proprietors access to the broader range of vehicles in silver at much more financial manageable costs. It also increases the revenue of the council, as current unused Hackney plates will be much more attractive for the prospective drivers. I'll kindly ask this committee today to take a reasonable decision and vote in favor of the proposal. We don't want to get to a stage where we will have no wheelchair taxis or very limited numbers of them in our streets. We would want to leave we don't want to leave the most vulnerable citizens in our city without transportation. Thank you very much. This is all from us today. Thank you.
Okay, that's kind of you. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or anything you require from the drivers? No? Okay, thank you so much. Did you have anything else you wanted to say? You've only used up some of your time, so thank you for that. But
No, thank you. So.
Okay, thank you so much. In that case, we don't have any other public speakers, and so if we can jump to item 5 then on page 15, recommendations are on page 17 at 2.1. If I could just ask the licensing officer, environmental health manager, to actually introduce this item. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So this is a policy change for vehicle age requirements for Hackney carriage and private hire vehicles. A recent petition was received from the trade rep asking the council to reconsider the current vehicle age limit and livery. Following discussions with the trade reps and senior management here at the city, officers agreed to review the age limit and not the livery, as this had already been brought to committee in January 2023, where a decision was made to continue with having a livery. So this report is purely on considering the age limit policy. The current policy is any new vehicle must be less than 4 years, and any vehicle needs to be renewed has to be less than 9 years. The reason this policy was introduced many years ago was due to emission standards and air quality commitment of this authority. One of the reasons to consider the age limit was due to the lack of availability in the market and the current cost of living crisis to support the trade. Officers carried out research on the most popular vehicle makes and models on the fleet, and it was found that there was a limited availability using the current new vehicle age policy. And also, as understandably, as the vehicles get older, the vehicles then become cheaper to purchase. It also allowed for the increased availability for wheelchair accessible vehicles, as we are then expanding the new policy to be only Euro 5 and above, and there's no age limit on new vehicles as the proposal. The impact on air quality will be minimal due to the policy change in 2016, where this committee committed changes to moving all our vehicles to either electric or ultra-low vehicles. Again, this policy will remain the same. So the majority of vehicles that are positively going to be impacted by this change in policy is the Hackney carriage wheelchair accessibility vehicles. We do have 16 vehicles, plates, 16 vacant plates, and we have 12 plates that are on hold that the drivers are waiting to purchase a new vehicle. By expanding this policy, we're hoping that these plates will then be taken up by the drivers, and that will increase the amount of wheelchair accessibility on the fleet. So the recommendation as in 17, so what we've done in this recommendation with immediate effect is the request to remove the 4-year minimal age limit for newly licensed vehicles. If this recommendation is approved, the new policy will state a new vehicle licence will not be granted in respect of a vehicle unless it meets the Euro 5 standards or higher. The second decision, increase the age limit from 9 to 11. If this is voted in, then the amended policy would state a vehicle licence will not be renewed unless the vehicle is less than 11 years old. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bennett.
Just a query on the wording. Page 17, 2.1a, where it says 4-year minimum age limit, should that be 4-year maximum age limit? Because we're not requiring vehicles to be at least 4 years old. Thank you.
So, yeah, we can get that amended, Councillor Bennett.
Sorry, I didn't notice it when I read through before.
Thank you. Can I just double check in that same on the recommendations? My understanding that for saloon vehicles, new vehicle licences are not being offered unless they're ultra low emission. So although it then later, and you've said it yourself, this relates only to wheelchair accessible vehicles, but can I just double check? This is not for saloon vehicles, this is only for wheelchair accessible vehicles. That's one question. Shall I do both? And then my other question is, obviously we have had issues with wheelchair accessible, there not being wheelchair accessible vehicles available to the people that need them. And I totally appreciate this is not in terms of hackney carriages, but for the private hire. So if we were to make these changes, is there anything that we could do to kind of link that to ensuring that those wheelchair accessible vehicles, when they are working as private hires, are actually available for wheelchair users to use and are taking those jobs? So that's maybe a more complicated question. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. So, yeah, just to clarify, the above recommendations that I've just highlighted are only applicable to petrol, diesel and standard hybrid electric. So, for any new vehicle, any new saloon, they have to either be electric or ultra-low or a standard hybrid, which we introduced 2 years ago. And then, so, in essence, this is only applicable to petrol wheelchair accessibles for the new. However, for the 11-year, there is going to be some saloons that are still petrol or diesel that will remain on the fleet for an additional 2 years. Does that make sense? And then your second point, which is a little bit more complicated, this is allowing us to have more, hopefully more wheelchair accessible vehicles on the fleet, that we can get the 28 plates that are currently sitting there not being used back out. However, there is nothing in the legislation that we can force anyone to take a wheelchair booking. Operators can't refuse a booking, and operators are not refusing bookings, but as the drivers are self-employed, they can decide whether they want to take the booking. So unfortunately, as it stands at the moment, it is a massive issue across the country that we, however, even if we put 100% wheelchair fleet on the fleet, there's nothing in the legislation that's forces us to say you have to take a wheelchair booking. The other issue we have on this is that a lot of these vehicles are doing the school runs. So I've been speaking to the county council, and it's a very affluent work to do school runs. We've got 108 of our drivers that do school runs in the morning and afternoon, and invariably they could be wheelchair bookings. So that automatically takes those types of vehicles and drivers not available between 7:30 and 9:30 and 2:30 and 5 o'clock. And they're the 2 school run slots. So we are doing some research at the moment to try and work out actually what is the market out there at the moment. But the school runs are quite lucrative. Sorry, I can't answer your question anymore, Councillor Moore, but unfortunately we're going around the houses on this one, and it is a national problem. And as I keep saying, we are lobbying government to see whether there is changes that can be made, and we've raised it with our MP as well.
Okay with that, Councillor Moore? Yeah, I've got a couple there. Councillor Carling.
Thank you. So I had a couple of things. On page 17, there's a reference, well, in the new proposed wording, there's a reference to a Euro 5 standard. I wonder if you would just mind explaining briefly what that means. And then on the following page, I noticed in the table that at the moment the policy is for zero emission vehicles to have an age limit of up to 15 years. And I wondered whether you think extending the policy, well, the age limit for other vehicles from 9 to 11 years could potentially disincentivise people from moving over to zero emission vehicles faster. And that I guess then follows on to the implications section, which at the moment suggests that there's a nil rating on climate change. And I just wondered kind of what the reasoning behind that is, because I'm not sure, it doesn't feel quite right. As to whether, extending the licence for available petrol and diesel vehicles at the moment, whether that has implications for us in terms of, emissions and such like. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. So with the Euro 5 standard, vehicle emissions have got various Euros from Euro 1, and the max at the moment is Euro 6. So Euro 6 vehicles are vehicles that were manufactured. So Euro 5 vehicles are vehicles that were manufactured in 2014. Euro 6 vehicles are vehicles that were manufactured Euro 5 were manufactured in 2014. Euro 6 were ones that were manufactured in 2015. So the Euro 6, there's only a few Euro 5s left on our fleet. So most vehicles that you would be purchasing today is likely to be a Euro 6, but there could be 2 years worth of vehicles that would be still a Euro 5. So it's the year of when the vehicle was manufactured, the year it was registered, should I say, not necessarily manufactured, because that is where the confusion, because back in the day, a lot of these vehicles would sit on the airport forecourt for a number of years before they were registered. So actually, when we looked at our research, the Euro standards are actually a bit of a red herring, which is why we've gone for the electric side rather than the Euro 6 side. Euro 5 is just in there because it's always been in there. But the main point is any new vehicle doesn't have to be under 4 years old. So that's that question. I might have to ask you to repeat the second question, Councillor Carling. So we were talking about so the electric vehicles have a maximum age limit of 15 years. There is going to be minimal, when we work this out, there's actually going to be minimal impact on changing from 9 to 11. Yes, we're going to still see some vehicles on our fleet for an extra 2 years that we class as dirty vehicles, but we actually haven't got that many of them. And we're hoping by extending the 11-year role, it will then give drivers or vehicles of electric vehicles, because unfortunately, the electric vehicle market is quite limited at the moment. So drivers are struggling to find electric and ultra low, which is why we brought in the standard hybrid 2 years ago, just to give them a bit more. So they're still moving in the right direction. So clearly our council aim is to make sure all our vehicles are electric by 2028. This is going to slightly take it over the limit, but that is reliant on the fact that we have other clean air zones, whatever we want to have in the city to encourage people to purchase electric vehicles. So the policy is still going in the right direction. but we've also got to support the trade in providing a service such as wheelchair accessible. So it's really going to be the wheelchair accessible vehicles that are going to have the major impact on this policy. But we don't think there's going to be massive impact on air quality. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, broadly speaking, yeah. Thanks.
Councillor Bird.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so if I've heard it right, Yvonne, we've got 122 wheelchair taxis. And out of that, 108 are used for school transport, if I'm correct.
Not necessarily all 108 are wheelchair. They could be the saloon, but it does take quite a bit of our fleet off the market at those periods of time.
Okay, so going back to that then, so Dial-A-Ride, do they come under our licensing? No. Okay. It was just a thought that we could use Dial-A-Ride when it's the taxis are doing. Yeah, so we can't work on that.
No, they're a public service because they carry more than 8 passengers, so they then fall under the public service system, which
Right.
is regulated by somebody else, and I can't remember who.
Okay, and my last question, well, it's just a comment really. I'm really pleased about this because we've had lots of problems, as you know, with wheelchair accessible taxis, where disabled people can't get a taxi, they're stuck at home all the time. So this might help us. So I'm all for it. So thanks, Yvonne.
Councillor Bennett.
I just wanted to make 2 quick comments on Councillor Carling's question. I think there's a lockdown effect here because people were not using their taxis as much during lockdown. So the air quality effect is from the use, not from the age. So effectively, those taxis have had 18 months less use than they might normally have had, which is another reason why there's not a big impact on air quality, as well as the small number that Yvonne referred to. And I hope that provides a small amount of extra comfort. And also on a personal note, I'm quite a regular taxi user, and quite often I have to go to things without my wheelchair if I have to use a taxi, because I can't get a wheelchair. And sometimes that's not a problem because I have other mobility aids, but sometimes it really, really is. So I echo what Councillor Bird has said about the importance of keeping up the wheelchair accessible numbers.
Thank you for that. Last on my list is bounce back to Councillor Moore because you had another question.
Thank you. So I'm fully in favour of this for the wheelchair accessible vehicles. I just wonder about the impact then on how many saloon vehicles, not in point 1, but in point 2, changing it from 9 to 11. Do you know, roughly how many saloon vehicles that would be? And would we be able to separate out the 2? So still expect the saloon vehicles to get a new vehicle and move to the ultra low or electric, but have this change for the wheelchair accessible ones. And just on Councillor Carling's point, the climate impacts, there's not just the use of the fuel, but also there's the embedded carbon. So actually kind of using vehicles for longer has some climate impact, positive impacts, because you're not creating new. But obviously the more and more we know and the more research is done around the impacts on human health from air pollution, we just learn more and more about how bad it is for us. Mental health, physical health, things like dementia. So I do think we want to not weaken our air quality actions, particularly in light of the fact that bigger projects may be facing difficulties. Thanks.
I can't be certain, Councillor Moore, but I think we've still got 38 private hire vehicles that are petrol or diesel, and we've got 49 Hackney carriage vehicles that are saloon, that probably are, well, I can't work out whether they are electric or, because I don't know when they became on the fleet. So there is possibilities of splitting the existing petrol diesel cars and then extending the 11 years for the rest, but that does become quite complicated. And when we're only talking about 38 vehicles, it just makes the policy quite messy, I'm afraid. Sorry. I'm just trying to reduce administrative burden for my officers if we start splitting policies down into different bits and pieces. But it can be done.
Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? Nearly lost it.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, so how long will this go on for before we'll have to review this policy? Do we know?
We keep all policies under review, but what we will need to do is we're going to be bringing another committee report back in January about the standard hybrid vehicles, which we said that we would review in 2024. So we're proposing to bring that back in January to review, do we still accept standard hybrid vehicles, which are still lower emissions than petrol or diesel. So I think we just need to keep our whole air quality, environmental considerations under review at all times and see how the market is moving forward. Because obviously, as we all know, we've just come out of COVID, we've had the Ukraine crisis, we've had the cost of living crisis. So it's really difficult to understand what the market is doing at the moment. But at the moment, the lead-in period for an electric vehicle is 12 months. And then they're not purchasing them en masse, or they're not manufacturing them en masse. They're only now manufacturing vehicles per order. So it's really, really difficult to understand what's going on. So I think for us, I certainly want to try and aim to meet our air quality policy by 2028, but obviously that will also depend on external factors that are also going on. But I think for us as a commitment, we need to be aiming for a 2028 all-electric, ultra-low policy. So that is my ultimate aim. But as I said, we've got external factors that can influence that are not necessarily under our control. Sorry, I can't answer that more specifically, but things are ever moving, as we know at the moment.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Okay, are we ready to go to the recommendations? Everybody happy with that? Now, would you like to take both together, or would you like to do them separately in view of some of the comments? Everybody happy with them both together? Okay. In that case, I'm not going to read them out because we've had that. So recommendations 2.1 on page 17, as written with a small amendment, point A, removing the 4-year maximum age limit for newly licensed vehicles. With that small change, if everybody would like to express their opinion, all those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you so much. And I think that concludes our business today. And thank you, gentlemen, for turning up.